We try to be under an hour for every call. Today is just, we're just so slammed.
Adam Fox spends his days rescuing animals stranded on the shores of LA County. And lately he's been much busier than he'd like. The calls are non-stop, reporting animals like this California sea lion sick from domoic acid, a neurotoxin found in algal blooms.
The number of sick animals like the sea lion that are washing up on shore here in LA County right now is unprecedented. It's happening much earlier in the year than it's supposed to, and the numbers are off the charts.
Toxic algae blooms occur naturally. They used to be rare, but they've been happening annually for the last 4 years. And this year in LA, it's worse than ever.
This animal is struggling. It's very, very sick.
On the way to pick up a stranded dolphin, we pass another one, already dead. This one is alive, but seizing. It's too far gone. They have no choice but to euthanize it right here on the beach. Mammals get sick after eating fish that eat algae.
1, 2, 3, up.
But dolphins are not normally this badly affected.
Definitely a red flag, especially the volume, the number of cases.
Scientists aren't sure why this year's algal bloom is so devastating. The first step toward finding out happens here, where the team gathers samples. Experts suspect there's a link to runoff from January's wildfires. Ash from organic matter is rich in nitrates, which feed algae. Proving that link requires scientific research. But first, at the Marine Mammal Care Center in San Pedro, veterinarians help those animals that can be saved.
How do you treat them?
A lot of it is supportive care. If we can rehydrate them, give them fluid, then that can help to sort of flush the toxin out. It's usually less than half that we're able to release back into the ocean.
The samples gathered here are sent off to be analyzed by scientists, many of whom are either employed or funded by NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. But the vets here say that cuts to NOAA and uncertainty surrounding future cuts have effectively stopped that work in its tracks.
We're just one small piece of the puzzle, and if NOAA is currently being crippled by budget and staffing cuts, then that makes it really difficult to do this really important research.
NOAA declined to comment, and the White House didn't respond to our inquiries. But officials have said cuts to the federal government generally are meant to reduce waste and fraud and improve efficiency. Overwhelmed rescue groups can do little more than try to stem the tide. They sometimes have to leave animals stranded for days, marking them to keep track.
So you're witnessing this unprecedentedly bad event that requires a lot of science to understand in a moment where that science is being constrained. How does that feel? What does it make you think?
Frustrated. Working at a hospital, you bring a scalpel to difficult problems. You don't bring sledgehammers. And it feels like sledgehammers are ruling our decision-making these days, and that's scary. If your child were sick, we get concerned. I think people should be concerned that our ocean is sick.
Oh my gosh, and that image is just so haunting, that dolphin there. David joins us here in the studio. David, there are so many questions here. First off, the triage situation that we just saw, that these rescuers are dealing with. These are nonprofits, right? These are not the federal government, not local agencies, nonprofits that are going out there. Is this getting worse?
Yes, is the short answer. So there are a couple of things going on. These algal blooms that have this toxic neurotoxin called domoic acid, they happen naturally, but they used to happen pretty rarely, every 4 to 7 years or so. In Southern California, they've been happening every single year. And this year, it started happening much earlier than it normally does, and it seems to be much more toxic than it normally is. And nobody really knows why it is so bad this year compared to past years. And precisely the problem is that we are, the sort of research that needs to be conducted to answer that question, whether it has to do with the wildfires and other factors or just the wildfires, figuring out what the constellation of factors is, it's pretty much not happening because the federal agency that oversees this research is more or less frozen, like so many federal agencies are, trying to just figure out what their future is.
So we don't, I'm trying to compute what you just said. We know that there were these crazy fires. You and I, we saw runoff from what were houses, what were cars, were like entire neighborhoods running off into the ocean. Do we know, what tests are people taking tests in the Bay right now to see what the water quality is, what the toxic levels are? And how do we not know whether or not this is connected to the fires or the algae?
Yeah, it's really complicated. So the marine mammals that you just saw being rescued, or in some cases not rescued, they're sort of sentinels for ocean health, right? If the dolphins and the sea lions are
test the
doing poorly,
dolphins or you test the seals, right?
Exactly. And they give us a sense of how what's going on in the oceans might affect us, because we're also mammals. And there's a couple of things going on. The most toxic stuff from the fires, the vehicle batteries, the plastic, all of that, likely won't have an immediate effect on marine life or on marine mammal life. It'll take time, and people are out there trying to gather samples, trying to study this to get a sense of whether in the next 3, 5, 10 years there are consequences to it. What seems to be happening now is that organic matter that burned in the fires, trees, wood, produces ash that feeds these algal blooms, which are toxic to marine mammals and can be toxic to humans. But again, we don't know for sure that that's what's happening. It's a hypothesis. It's a pretty reasonable hypothesis. The other huge thing that I would be remiss not to mention here is that climate change is a factor as well. One of the reasons that these algal blooms were getting worse before the fires, one of the reasons for that is warming temperatures of the ocean, obviously related to climate change. Also, runoff from industrial agriculture, which is also rich in nitrates and also feeds the algal blooms. Not understanding, not studying all of that stuff means not addressing all of that stuff.
And not realizing when things cascade out of control, which is, again, like those images. I mean, that dolphin, it's an unforgettable image, it rolling around in the surf. Yeah. David, such an important report. Thank you so much for bringing us that.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.